If you're visiting for the first time, my name is Michelle D'Souza. I'm a licensed financial advisor in Ontario. If you're an employee in Canada, you might have the habit of looking into your payslips like me. And you would have wondered at least sometimes on how you could reduce that big chunk of money that goes as income tax in your payslip. How about if you were able to reduce that amount at the source itself and get a slightly higher amount as your net pay in your bank account every bi-weekly or every monthly or at whichever cadence your employer pays you? Wouldn't that be great? So there is a method in Canada by which you could tell your employer to deduct less taxes at source. And if you would like to know that method, stay tuned till the end of this video.
Well, here we are. So I've taken an example payslip from the internet just to go over the line items that you would see in a payslip, and we will slowly walk through each line item and we'll see which exact line item we can leverage to reduce our taxes and increase our net pay at the end of the month. So on the left hand side, you would see the employee ID, the period for which this pay is scheduled, the pay date, this is the date in which the salary actually comes to your bank account, the check number in case you do not have a direct transfer to your bank account setup. The income options are your gross pay for the regular number of hours, which is in this case it is 45 hours. The overtime if you have put in extra hours at work, and your vacation pay in case there are any kind of statutory holidays during that particular pay period. Now, where most of our focus will be, or most of the employees' concern would be on the right hand side, which is mainly the deductions from your gross pay. So the first two, which is the CPP and the EI, the Canada Pension Plan and the Employment Insurance, are something which cannot be changed. These are compulsory per payslip for an employee. These are not compulsory for self-employed and other categories, but for an employee, these are unavoidable. Now, CPP is something that you contribute to during your working years so that you get a government pension after the age of 60. Now, there are some rules around it, and we will be going through it in some of my later videos. But for the purpose of this video, I would just like to mention that the deductions are 5.7% as of 2022 out of your total annual gross pay, and the maximum deduction that is possible in a year is $3,500. There is also an equivalent of $3,500 that the employer will put in your CPP account as well. So the employer also matches your $3,500. Now, employment insurance is something that is paid out to the employee in the case of a job loss, or if the employee goes on some kind of maternity or parental leave. The highest line item is basically the income tax. And now, in this case, I am not sure what exactly this federal tax means, but generally, the income tax has both the federal tax and provincial tax components. There are also some other insurance optional items that the employer could provide to the employee, like the life insurance and the Canada Savings Bond. So, a total of all this will be used as deductions or the subtracting item from your gross pay. So, here on the left hand side, you would see the year to date gross, year to date deductions, and year to date net pay. And in this case, you see that for a gross amount of almost $40,000, your deduction is about $10,000, which comes up to an average of 25%, which is really huge. And this is average, right? Now, your net pay in this case is $1,294, and the total is $1,725. This is your gross, and this is what you're getting as the net pay. Now, there is a famous income tax calculator online that most of us use to calculate our income taxes, maybe for the annual salary or for your monthly or bi-weekly salary. In this case, I've put the province as Ontario. You can put any province within Canada. and you can see the numbers here. So for 100,000 gross income, if you calculate the withholding taxes, the federal withholding taxes are 16,878 and the provincial taxes are 8655. Now, as I mentioned, CPP and EI are fixed. You cannot avoid them, you cannot reduce them. But we do have a leeway on the federal and provincial taxes. Um, we have ways in which we can reduce them. We can use some deductions to reduce our gross income, and through that we can reduce the taxes, because we could try to come into the lower tax bracket. In this case, the marginal tax rate is 43.2% and the average tax 30%, which you see is pretty high considering 100,000 is not a huge salary in a city like Toronto. So what is it that we can do to be able to get higher net pay per salary slip compared to at the end of the year? So CRA itself provides a form to employees which could be filled out before the tax year in order to use the deductions which they could otherwise have used at the end of the year before even the tax year starts. So that form is nothing but the T1213 request form to reduce tax deductions at source. I feel all of us should make use of this provision so that you can get higher net pay earlier in your account. You can use that money to pay off mortgage, pay off any kind of debts, or even better, you could use that money for investments much earlier on instead of waiting for your money to come back to you in the form of tax returns at the end of a year. So I'll just walk you through this particular request form. We'll look at it together as to what are the different options that you could use as deductions. You can put your identification over here, your social insurance number, your employer, and where you want to reduce taxes from, either your salary or your lump sum. Lump sum in this case could be bonus, and the different forms of deductions that are available to you. This is also what you would see in your tax return form, but the best part about this request form is this you could do in the beginning of the year instead of at the end of the year. So you have your regular RRSP contributions. I mentioned this in my previous video of how this is calculated. So you would already have an idea of what your gross income is this year and your contribution room for the next year. So that would be almost 18% of your contribution room. And say you have decided to use maybe 5% of your contribution room, you put that number over here. Childcare expenses. Now, if you have a small child at home whom you need to send to daycare, then those would come under your childcare expenses, which you could add over here. Support payments. Now, this is in case of any kind of litigation or court order for which you would need to put some spousal payments in the case of a divorce settlement, then such kind of payments would fall in this category. Employment expenses. Now, I'm sure majority of us have been working from home for a while now, and you would have got T2200S from your employer. Now, if you know that the majority of the upcoming year also you're going to work from home, then this is one section again that you could make use of much early on. Carrying charges and interest expenses on investment loans. Now, I'm not a tax expert, so I'm not sure what this section is. Um, Next, we'll come to medical expenses. So, medical expenses, there is a limit up to which your expenses are not paid. Again, this limit keeps changing year from year. Above that limit, if you have medical expenses which are not covered by OHIP, you can use that also under your tax deduction. Donations. Now, if you have some favorite charities, you know how much you're going to pay every year for those charities. That also could be added as part of your tax deduction. Clergy residence. Now, this is very specific to clergy. Again, I'm not exactly sure how this form T1223 is filled for clergy. RPP buying back contributions. I think majority of the audience here would not need to use this because this is mainly for past service contributions before 1989. I wasn't even born in 1989, so I don't think majority of us would have to use this. Foreign tax credit. Now, this one is a very special scenario in the case that you're a resident of Canada for the majority of the year, and then you spend the rest of the year in a country which has a dual tax treaty with Canada. Then you would get some foreign tax credits. Again, there is a calculation around it on how this is calculated. You should ask your tax consultant if you need more information around this. But this is one more thing which could be added much early on. So as you see, most of these deductions, which are generally added in your tax returns, can be added the previous year itself. And the way this form works is you fill in all these details in October, November of the previous year. Like, for example, if you want to have lesser taxes deducted in 2022, you can fill up this form in October or November of 2021. CRA is going to review it. You need to send it to CRA in each of these addresses. So, addresses for different provinces are provided here. You need to send it to these addresses. Your form will be reviewed, and if your deductions are approved by the CRA, then those deductions will be sent to your employer, and then for the upcoming year, your employer is going to have those deductions applied at the source itself, and you would be getting a higher net pay. So, this is a very good provision provided by the CRA, and I think all of us should make use of it instead of waiting for our tax refunds till the end of the year. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do click the like, share, and subscribe button and support me. And I hope to see you all in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.